Hey guys, Vince here, back again with another Supercoach video. Our round one review. Oh, I am so disappointed, and this looks so terrible to start. Look, a lot of poor things obviously didn't go our way. A lot of players went off as they do in round one. Um, that usually wouldn't. Probably more along the line of like a Brendan Cox, things like that. Saying that, not very highly owned. LDU had a massive game. I'm sure a few people were on him for a breakout year. Look, I think pretty common things, as we sort of mentioned. We expected Caniglio to go massive at the start of this season. As we said, if we don't start him, we're not getting him, but he's going to have like a 115 average in the first 5 games. Round one, 143. Pretty insane. Next week, I'm pretty sure they have West Coast, so good chance he comes out with another massive game, which was expected. But I'm starting to rethink what maybe that 5 round average was going to be, and maybe what the total season average will be with the game that he just had. And on top of that, obviously Whitfield and Kelly took head knocks, so there's a good chance he's going to get even more CBAs in the next game, and good chance he goes even more ballistic. So that's kind of scary. Horn Francis looked absolutely phenomenal, amazing. Didn't see that coming personally. He just didn't look like the same player that was at the Roos, and I guess that was the whole talk in the preseason that he wasn't. But wow, he looked good. I think the thing with Horn Francis too is it's very reminiscent of Tom Green last year, where he just comes out of the gates firing, big bull midfielder, and then sort of falls off midway through the season. That's not really a problem with Horn Francis because of his price. If he does that, you're still going to make bang for your buck. Probably going to just make an easy upgrade stepping stone if need be, if that sort of shows reminiscence of those signs. But there's a good chance he could just end up being a forward keeper, which was kind of crazy. Sheasel, oh my gosh, what a role for Sheasel. Obviously, we saw it in the fourth quarter in the practice game that Sheasel was really great in a half-back role, but we didn't think he was going to get that. I personally was off working at the time and did not watch the very start of this game and did not realize he was lining up on the back line, and then just goes ballistic on us. So a lot of players that just went off that weren't highly owned, but were pretty well owned, and we just got absolutely punished for it this week. A 1950, what a low score that is. I guess the only good thing is that obviously we didn't go for any of the big dogs. Clary's score was fine. Laird ended up with a 50, and I'm pretty glad that we dodged that, obviously. But let's jump into it. We'll go through the lines. Just Whew. So, defense. Look, the defense premiums went pretty well. Doggo in here to say hello because that's what he does. Yeah, happy with Doherty's game. We already talked about that. Dawson, nothing wrong with his game. He started off a lot stronger and then sort of just got to a 97, which was nice. Ridley, the 107, pretty nice there. Had 50% of the kickouts, which is really nice. And I think Essendon's game style will be good for him this year. Jones obviously got injured after having a horrible first 2 quarters, so that sucks. Jimby, everyone should have him. The only good thing with Jones, I guess, is he is very highly owned, so everyone sort of goes down with the ship there. Obviously, as you can probably see, we're missing McKenna here, because I did make that change from Sicily to Ridley and McKenna to Cowan so that I could bring in Setterfield. Yeah, overall, net me a little bit less points on field. But it's not the worst, that move, in my opinion. Constable with the 56 had really bad kicking efficiency, so considering he got 56, we'll be alright with that. And if that's sort of his floor, that's perfectly fine. Wilmot actually did a lot better than what he was tracking for in a game where Brisbane got stomped. He picked up a few points in that final quarter, which got him to a pretty reasonable score. And then Cowan, obviously, the early sub. So, defense overall, it wasn't the worst case scenario. You take out Jones's 5 and, everything looks pretty alright. So, that's unfortunate. But I think most damage was actually done in the midfield, which kind of sucks. So, we got Bonds 107 as the captaincy score. No problem there, considering we didn't really have, anyone go massive outside of Green. We had 2 108s and then the 107s. So, and we had Goulden's 115. So really, one of the highest scores we actually had, even though it wasn't great. Green obviously was phenomenal. With Bond's game as well, he started like a house on fire and then just disappeared. I just did not see him in the second half of that game. Green absolutely torched Adelaide. He was just insane. And it went off even crazier at the end when Kelly got moved out of it. I think there's just more ball for Green and Caniglio, and they both just went nuts in a game that they were all cramping up. There were so many players down. Like, that was just... It was crazy to watch them hold on to a game where you just see, like, Haynes unable to run, gets a mark, looking for a handoff. The handoff would have gone to Aish as well, but they called it back. And then he kicks it from 50, and he's instantly, like, on the ground after it, trying to stretch out. So... yeah, I mean, I think that was pretty entertaining in reality. Really disappointing for an Adelaide supporter, obviously. You started really well, you let them get away, and then in a game where you should have been able to outrun them, you just didn't finish it. And that could be down to Laird just having zero impact in that game, so that doesn't feel good. Setterfield with the 99, so pretty good to get him in for the 99 at the end of the day. I'm pretty happy with that. You know, lot more worst case scenarios. Such as Aish with this 55. Ash. Ash, it's hard to be annoyed at this in the sense of what could have happened. I'm pretty sure the man was on like 13 at halftime, had like 11 disposals and like 13 Supercoach. So, finished off with 21 disposals and then got to the 55. So he did rein it back in, and I guess if he just has a more consistent game overall, then it'll be fine. Hopefully next week it sort of evens out. He had a really poor kicking efficiency, I think. Wasn't too bad, 76 from there, but he had the 6 clangers. I didn't see no. Was this game on early? I think, gosh, I don't even remember. I don't even remember my Sunday. What was I doing? My life. This was the first game of the day on Sunday. Yeah, it was. I just remember not seeing Ash in the first few games. I'm pretty sure I missed the first half of this game, so I didn't see what happened early, but I'm pretty sure that's where he got most of his clangers, which then obviously really caps your score going forward, because you already have those scaling into your score. So that really hurt. Hopper ended up on the 67. We already talked about that on the last video, and then Warple on the 97. So as I mentioned, as to why I was kind of scared of getting Warple, is that 31 disposals at the end of the day. That's insane. But he gets a 97 because... it's just what Warple does. I mean, let's look at this. Efficiency-wise, I don't think it was the worst. 72, only 3 clangers. But for someone to be getting so many disposals, it was only 29 disposals. But to get close to 30 disposals and not even crack the ton, it's kind of worrying for these games that maybe he doesn't pick up as many disposals. But it does feel like he is the main man in the midfield there, and I do see him getting those disposals, even if they're poor. Wagner and Millera. Yeah, kind of similar thing to Ash. He was slow early. He had like a few touches early on. I think similar thing where he was on like 13 disposals or something around that mark and just like not a good score out of it, and then managed to bring it back with like 10 extra disposals in the second half and just get good enough. I think a similar thing too where he had like a lot of clangers and really bad kicking efficiency. Yeah, so 5 clangers and 55% accuracy. So that's what's really hurt him there. He definitely had a lot of kicks as he usually would. Yeah, 17 out of 18 disposals was his kicks. And he ended up with a 52. So that's the sort of numbers that you usually get, and you would expect a much bigger score, but he just didn't have the accuracy, unfortunately, and it really just showed there. So I think with Ash and Millera, I'm going to hold on for them for another week. I think they both showed that they have the role and they have the ability, in half the game of footy. But, well, mainly, Millera has the role. Just, Ash's role isn't too bad. But yeah, in half a game of footy, they definitely showed that they could be good, and they just needed to make that a bit more consistent. And that's obviously going to happen with these sort of mid-price of players, that there usually is some reason that they are at this price, and one of those would be consistency, one of those would be role-related. Obviously, Wagner and Millera is a second-year player, so consistency for someone that young is definitely going to be probably a problem for every AFL player. It's a big step to get into the AFL and play at their level, so you will have consistency issues there. Unfortunately, but I do want to keep them, see how they go again next week. But there is obviously a lot of options that went really well that we could be looking at. Ashcroft had his 55. He honestly didn't look great, but in a game where Brisbane just got stomped and didn't look very good at all, so can't really blame him for that. And then Mackenzie with the 93. I guess that's the real punish there. It's obviously me moving Setterfield in meant that I moved Mackenzie to the bench. So if I had Mackenzie on the field, obviously just a 6-point difference there. That means I would have ended up with McKenna in the back line on the bench, so that doesn't really affect the score. But we obviously end up with a Sicily, I think, outscoring Ridley by 6 points. So it ends up being the same amount of points at the end of the day on the field as to what I would have had if I didn't go this route, changing it at the last second. So not too unhappy with it. And with Jones getting injured, it does mean that I do have the straight downgrade to McKenna. The other thing with Jones is he does look like he may potentially play. Obviously, he'll only have the 5 in his score rotation. This is the same sort of logic for Laird as well. If you have him, obviously, Supercoach works on a 3-round rotation, and you don't get price increases till the 3rd week of playing for that player. So if they do have a down score on week 1, it's only going to be in 1 price rotation before it's moved straight out. So Jones could definitely just turn it straight back on and start making money after that. Same with Laird. He's only going to have probably 1 down week, and if he has 2 big scores to match, back it up, he might be all right, and you might not lose that much cash on him. Obviously, if he has another poor performance, you could definitely move him on and bring him back once he's down 80k, 100k if you really want. But then you've got to have to worry about not having Laird for the next 3 weeks until you get him back in. And most of those people I know were too scared to not go without Laird, so I don't know if they'll make that play. But yeah, I think I would go down Jones to McKenna just because of the cash cow premises. There we'll obviously get 60k in the bank for going down to McKenna, and then even if Jones does get up and play, he's going to not really make money if go backwards for week 3 before he starts making probably money in week 4, where McKenna should have a big spike in week 3 and then hopefully continue on for week 4, assuming he, maintains what he was doing. He had a good role, so you'd assume that the scoring floor isn't too low and that he can actually maintain some decent scores here. Now, obviously, we had Baker and Chesser. Chesser isn't someone I really wanted in my team. Baker did fine in a game where Dogs, once again, just didn't look great. But they were playing Melbourne, who looked, it's Melbourne. They're good. They're definitely good, but it was a very scrappy game. And it actually, I was expecting a more high-quality game from those two teams. But Chesser, not somebody I really wanted in my team, but was just sort of the rookie that we fell on because we needed one, and a lot of the options weren't very good, but he could be someone that has to be moved on before week 3 just to get in a rookie that's actually making money. So that's an annoyance there. Now, going down to the ruck line, Darcy and Marshall. Big positives here with Darcy is he was atrocious in the first quarter. Once again, someone who was down on no more than 20 Supercoach points. Like, he was not having a good first quarter at all. First half at all, sorry. They were using Jackson a lot in the ruck. And then the second half, he exploded. He was massive in the game. Really impactful. But at the same time, wasn't enough for Freo to get up, obviously. So he turned around like an 80-point second half. And that's the thing with Darcy. He is a massive scorer when he gets going. Unfortunately, we know he can have these smaller patches where he does have those dry spells. Like 20 and a half is pretty very low for him. Like, it's pretty ridiculous. But then to pick it back up to a 96 by the end of the game, it just shows what he can do. So, get a more consistent game out of him, and he has a big half with a consistent first half. You're going to get a massive score out of him. So that's what we're looking for. Who do they have this week? They have North. Goldstein should be in the play because Cherry's obviously out. For some reason, they don't name Goldstein. They put in Campbell or something. It could be a pretty good day out for Darcy, but I definitely see Goldstein coming in. I wouldn't see why they would run Campbell there. They've never run him as a ruck before. He's definitely their forward line, full forward player, and he's only stuck in the ruck this week because they literally had no other height. Marshall obviously was up against Darcy. Look, it's a hard one for him. He's obviously versing someone that's incredibly good at the ruck. Let's see, 38 hit-outs for Darcy, 17 for Marshall. And Marshall does a lot of the round-the-ground work, but in a game that, I don't know, was the way it was, it felt hard to get super involved. Looking at the stats line, he did have 6 clangers with 68% efficiency, so only the 16 disposals, not good efficiency, and 6 clangers, so in reality, an 80 is pretty good to bring out from Marshall's situation. So, we'll take that. If that's going to be his floor, I'm very happy for that to be a floor. Moving up to Dunkley, who just started like a house on fire as well, similar to Bont, and then just fell out of that game. Don't know what to say. Just wasn't there. Rosie was pretty consistent throughout the game. He was constantly in the midfield. He had the role, which we loved. 97, we're happy with that. Hopefully he can get that a bit more up moving forward, especially in a game where Port sort of dominated and there was a lot of big scores from Port. But I do think that the big bulls, such as Horne-Francis, Butters, were like taking over a bit more than Rosie could. So maybe in games where those two aren't let off the leash so easily, Rosie might be able to increase his output by getting more involved. Not having to take the back seat and just let those guys run over the game. Now, Toronto 1-3, we already talked about that. Goulden 115, awesome. They obviously smashed Gold Coast, and I didn't really watch this game because I had the other game on. I had Essendon GWS on, I believe it was. Sorry, I had the Melbourne Bulldogs game on because it was a Saturday night game. But in the last quarter, obviously they were smashing them. Goulden looked good in the last quarter. I didn't see what his CBA sort of split was, but obviously if you're playing forward line and your team's smashing, you're still probably going to come out with a good score anyway. So, good for Goulden. Bruin, super frustrating. He just did not have the role. They didn't stick him in the midfield. They did early on, and he looked really good early on, and I thought this is perfect. This is what we want. And then he ended up on the wing, and he just didn't get involved much at all moving forward. Obviously that could have been down to the Stewart injury, Parfitt coming in, Parfitt taking a lot of that midfield role, everyone getting sort of moved around a bit. That could have been potentially a reason for it, but I don't know, he was really good early, and I don't see why, if they were trying to win that game, why he wasn't in there more towards the end. So that's a bit of a worrying sign, especially with Horne-Francis going off as much as he did and feeling like someone that we must have. Is Bruin someone on the chopping blocks? It's the question there. Flanders with the 64. Obviously, Sheasel went off here, and he went off for 60k less. I think 50k less, which is kind of annoying because I saw a lot of people end up with Sheasel on their team because of the role. Unfortunately, Flanders, 64 really isn't bad, but I think in the role he is playing, he didn't really leave the forward line as much as I thought he would. I thought he'd push up into the stoppage a lot more. Just for what I saw in that final quarter, because as I mentioned, I didn't see a lot of this game, but in the final quarter, it really did look like he was parked in the forward line, and he managed to get a goal to really salvage his score and had a chance for a second one, but didn't. So that's a worrying sign as well. Obviously, he outscored Bruin at a much cheaper price, so unfortunately, I have bigger fish to fry than Flanders right now. But not a worrying sign for the role where I think, Bruin didn't have the role, but he did at the same time. Like, he had it and then he lost it, and I wouldn't see why they wouldn't give that role back to him. Yeah, it's very hard to make a decision here with this, but Green obviously didn't really do too well in a game where Hawthorn get pumped, and they're probably going to be pumped every week, so he's going to be a really slow burn if he amounts to much at all for us. Davey obviously had actually a pretty good score before the third quarter even started, and didn't really do much in the final quarter. But he had some good moments. His first goal was a monster. Looked really cool. He obviously had the opportunity much earlier where he just blew off from a marking contest, got it at the back, and he just had all this open space. Probably could have run right up to the goal line and kicked it, but instead he kicked it across the face out in the full, which was a little disappointing to see from him. But then he ended up with this massive first goal from 50, which was much more spectacular, honestly. So yeah, good on him. But yeah, that's just the team overall. It's such a worry, and that's probably why I sound a bit down in this video, because it wasn't a good score. There's a lot to look at. As I said, trades-wise, I'm going to be moving on Jones. I do want McKenna in here, and it's really frustrating not to have McKenna in here already. Just because I could have easily slipped McKenna onto the bench and got Jones down to someone, or even just put Jones on the bench in the meantime. And then this is where the question marks come in, because I'm not going to use a boost just yet. I'm going to give the players a chance to get back into this. But I do feel like I need to make a move. I do feel like Horne-Francis needs to be in this team. They have pies this week. We did keep a lot of the Geelong players down on the scoring line, but it's a hard one to choose. And Geelong is into Carlton this week, and Carlton is also really good at restricting midfielders from scoring. Ash into West Coast, I'm not too sure if that will be good or not. Obviously, if the ball lives in GWS's forward line, then he's not going to get involved too much, which kind of sucks. Wagner and Millera into the Dogs. It's fine. I think the role he plays is actually fine. He should be able to get the run and carry past them. But Dogs are running a very tall forward line, so there is a chance that maybe he just doesn't get involved because of that. No, I'm not going to be touching, I think, Setterfield, Warple, Hopper into Adelaide this week. Nope. Yeah, I think it has to be... Yeah, one of these four has to go. Just because of also Sheezel's performance, it does feel like Sheezel might be someone that we do need in the team as well, as a must-have with that role. And they are into Freo this week, and Freo are notorious for kicking a lot of behinds. They only had 10 on the weekend, but they usually are quite inaccurate in front of goals, and Sheezel did have some kickouts, so it could be really nice for him. And in a game where the ball lives down in Freo's forward line potentially, and then they're not kicking accuracy, it could be a really high-scoring show for the North Melbourne defenders. So really nice if you have Zeeble, and I think Sheezel. So that becomes the question: how do I do this? I think Horne-Francis can wait a week, but I think Sheezel has to come in. But then who am I bringing Sheezel in for? With the money I have, it just doesn't feel good. I could maybe... This it probably doesn't feel good. Oh, and that feels awful. I was going to go Sheezel here. Yeah, that can't be it. Wait, where is Sheezel? Am I blind? Is Sheezel just a forward? I thought he was a forward and mid. What? Whoa, okay, Sheezel's just a forward. My mistake there. Thought he was a forward mid so I could flex him. I mean, I can still flex it anyway, because technically I moved that out. I moved Davey here, and then Sheezel comes in there. The only problem there is that leaves me with 12k, and I have to play Flanders on the bench if I'm going to play Sheezel on the field, and that doesn't feel very good, playing 250k on the bench. I guess the only thing is I could move him up with Davies and put him on field over Ashcroft. That doesn't feel very good either. Yeah, that's why I can't get rid of one of these low-price rookies like a Chesser right now. It just doesn't really work. We'd love Sheezel in, but it has to be for a Bruin or a Flanders. If I do get rid of one of the mid-prices in the middle, I could then flex Flanders up. And then Horne-Francis next week. The other problem with this is, as we saw, it only leaves me with very little... Oh, I guess I'm getting rid of anyone else. It leaves me with enough money for Horne-Francis next week. And I don't want to use the boost just yet. So yeah, that's really the decision I'm going to be going through. I do think that Sheezel is a must-have in your team. I do think Horne-Francis is someone that could definitely be a must-have. I think you could wait one more week on him. McKenna looked way too good, and I think if you have Jones, that's a very easy switch if you don't have McKenna. If you do have McKenna, then I guess you can always play Jones on the bench if you want. It doesn't feel very good putting 200k on the bench. Especially because he'll have that round 3 very slow price, so he's going to be a slow burn moving forward. He'll eventually make the money. It just you might need to hold on to him until the buys or so to do that. So yeah, that's my decision to make. How do I get Sheezel into this team? Look, just for the meantime, I'm gonna actually take out. Oh, but Miller's role was so good. Okay, it's not letting me do this, so I'm just going to move Ash out for now, flip Flanders up, bring Sheezel in. Oh my gosh, that leaves 200k sitting there. That feels pretty bad, having 200k just sitting here. Wow. feels awful. The thing is, we know Ash has a ceiling as well. He can definitely go off. Alright, look, I'm going to wrap it up here. But that's obviously what I'm looking at and the decision I need to make in the week to figure out what I need to do. We're going to obviously choose our captains before we jump into this. Gorn and Witz also went massive. That was really incredible from both of them. I think we were kind of expecting it from Witz in the setup. Gorn, we saw it in the Pracky game, but yeah, for some reason you went big in the Rucks and you went Gorn and Witz. You'd be feeling pretty chuffed right now. So I think Gorn could definitely be a captain option, but maybe not at the Gabba. Big O usually actually isn't too bad at restricting scores. I don't really like any of these early games for captain options. I think Bont has to be the VC, maybe? Nah, he can't be the VC. It just doesn't work out. Maybe I just go... Laird wouldn't be too bad this week if you want to put your faith back in him. Dawson, I guess, doable. Ridley could actually have a big game. But that's a lot more speculative. I think we're a lot safer actually just playing into Bont like this. Oh, what am I thinking? I just remembered Green. That's it. There we go. I believe in Green. They actually go massive again. So I'm going to go Bont into Green. I think that's actually a pretty good option, honestly. Into West Coast, there's a good chance they will pump them, and he'll put out a similar score that he did this week. Yeah, because there's no one in West Coast that I can think of that's going to stop this man from doing what he wants to do. So that's my captain options for this week. Yeah, really, really disappointing week one. We'll see what we can do to turn this back on. It's okay. There's plenty of season left. And at the end of the day, as I mentioned, the inconsistency of the mid prices is definitely something we were aware of. Hopefully they can bring it back this week. Next week is obviously the price rises come in, and we will definitely be making switches on the underperforming mid prices. So yeah, hopefully catch you all then. I hope all your weeks went well. I'm sure they would have gone better than mine. So yeah, tell me about it in the comments. Tell me how terrible this was. But you know what? I'm excited still to see how this pans out. I still think there's potential for us to bring it back and make a serious difference here. Obviously, it's not looking good to start this low, but very quickly you can just like gain 40k ranks with a big week. So hopefully they can turn it around. So yeah, anyway, thanks for tuning in, everyone. Peace. Later.